Hello and welcome to the Tough Girl podcast, which is all about motivating and inspiring you. I'm your host, Sarah Williams. Today, I'm delighted we're speaking to Kiko Matthews, who is a former teacher, now turned estupier and adventurer. At 36, she rode 3,000 nautical miles from Gran Canaria to Barbados in 49 days, gaining a new Guinness World Record in the process. She was solo and unsupported. During this podcast, we're going to be hearing more about Kiko, her life, her passions, the decisions she's made, and the challenges she's had to face and overcome, and what she's learned along the way. Hi, Kiko.
Hiya, how are you doing?
I am very well, thank you. I mean, first of all, massive congratulations for what you achieved. You must be on an incredible high at the moment.
Well, that's what you'd think, isn't it? But I think this British weather is very good at like reducing a high when you realise that you're back into the real world with sort of, rain. But yeah, no, it's great. That side of having achieved the world record, that is very exciting. But being back in the UK is not quite so exciting.
Has it settled in yet? I mean, has it sort of sunk in yet what you've actually done and what you've achieved?
I don't know if it everyone keeps saying that. I think I just do take things quite just a bit blasé, and everyone always says to me, "Oh, you're just a bit blasé about it all, about everything." And I'm like, "Well, it's just something that's happened." So there's a little element of that. It's just I've done one thing. The next thing is kind of you've got to get on with life. Can't dwell on good things or bad things. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe I'm so used to like just moving on that I don't really kind of focus too much. But yeah, it's exciting. I mean, I can't really forget it because people keep asking me about it, and I keep having to go on telly and the radio to talk about it. But yeah, I don't feel like I'm anyone special because I've got this world record. I'm not sort of like walking around in this like with this air of, oh my God, what I've done.
When did you get the idea for rowing the Atlantic? When did the dream start?
So it was interesting actually because I've got two friends, Charlie and Angus, who both run Rannoch Adventure, which is an ocean rowing company. And I'd been watching lots and lots of people going across. Angus himself, I'd heard about Charlie's solo thing. And in 2014, when I met them, they were like, "Oh, you should do it." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. I just couldn't think of anything worse than being in a boat with 4 people." Because I've done UK to Cape Town in the Land Rover, and that was pretty hectic in a sort of confined space with a team. So it was like, there was no way I was going to do that again in another confined space. And then I thought about going solo, and I was like, "Oh no, I don't know anything about the sea. I don't know how to row. I could never go solo on my own." So it was a no-go. And then 3 years later, September 2016, I was in my van, and I remember just suddenly going, "Oh, I need a challenge. What to do? Oh, I hate the winter. What can I do that's in the winter? Oh, why don't I solo row the Atlantic and I'll go for the world record?" So I called them up, and the rest was history. So yeah, it was as simple as that.
So let's talk more about sort of your background in adventure, because you mentioned sort of like your Land Rover trip, which sounds incredible. So take us back to growing up. Were you quite adventurous as a child, very outdoorsy, outgoing?
So I'm one of 4 children. I'm the third. We had no TV till I was about 12 or 13. We had lived in the countryside, had quite a nice garden, got a tree house and stuff. So we were always sent outside to play. And my sister seems to not be very adventurous. I don't know what she used to do when she was sent off to play. Probably, I don't know, something girly. I always used to go outside. So yeah, I had a sort of like outdoors building dens and that kind of thing as a child. And then everyone always laughs and says, "Why?" But my parents, when I was naughty at night time, I used to get sent to the downstairs toilet, which was kind of off side shoot of the house, and it got like slate floors, and I had to go and sleep in there. But I used to make it so cozy. I used to like snuggle up in this little tiny space. So I absolutely love small spaces. I love camping. I love the little boat I was in. I always like the small bedroom. I like totally do not like. So I think I blame them for my little adventurous love of camping. And yeah, then I won a competition to Canada on a leadership course with the army. And then I did interrailing when I was like 17. So in between the two, in my sixth form, not after my sixth form, between my sixth form, did some traveling just as you do in sort of year outs and stuff. And then I met this guy who was into climbing, and snowboarding and stuff, and did some climbing and snowboarding. And then it was through him and his mate Colin, who was tetraplegic, and so that's paralysed from the shoulders down. And we raised £500,000 for spinal injuries, and he was the first person to drive from the UK to Cape Town. I was part of his support team, and it was a very interesting trip, because Ben was my fiance at the beginning, and by Ethiopia he wasn't my fiance, but I stayed with the team because it was a team effort. He stayed with the team, so I was basically confined to a Land Rover with an ex, which is always an interesting experience, but very good for the mental strengthening, I tell you. And it's kind of like there's always been bits. I've circumnavigated Ibiza on a paddleboard. I've done the usual traveling around the world type thing. I've done UK to Uganda. I've paddleboarded not all of the Nile, some of the Nile, bits of the Nile. So I love the outdoors, basically. That's about it.
You've done so much stuff, which is absolutely amazing. I mean, just going back to the Land Rover trip from the UK to Cape Town with 4 people, starting with your fiance, not ending with your fiance. I mean, what did you learn from that experience?
So the first thing was that because the trip was all about the guy, Colin, who was in the wheelchair, it was very much like there were so many things that you can't control. Like, you really want to go somewhere, or you want it to be going faster, or you want this and you want that, but you can't, because you've got this person who is physically incapable, or he got ill, so we had to stop and stay in the middle of nowhere for a month while his pressure sores improved, and like there was literally nothing there. So, and I was only 24, so you think you're really old and mature, but actually looking back now, you think, oh my God, I can't believe I was doing that when I was 24. And I just learned that you can't control things all the time, and also that things are temporary, and that pain moves on. So you can be, there were points when I actually thought I was going mental, and I was sort of like having thoughts of tipping the Land Rover, because I thought if we tipped the Land Rover over, then we could all go home and I wouldn't lose face about the fact that I had sort of run away from the trip because I didn't want to be there. And I remember Mum saying, like, oh, have you spoken to him? Because that was obviously because he was being so lovely to me. I wasn't his best friend, put it that way. And I had a conversation with him, and we were having beers a few minutes later. And so that was another great one, is that being honest and having conversations with people, talking things through, really is like the best thing. So I've always stood by my thing, that being honest to other people and to yourself. I mean, had to be honest to myself about the fact that he wasn't the right person. In the middle of, we were in Africa, and I had words, and then I had to be honest with him as well. And at the end of the day, it might hurt, it might be painful, but it really is the best thing to do. So communication, honesty, and not trying to control situations, I think, were my three big takeaways from that.
I mean, wow. I mean, there's so much in there, especially that being honest to yourself, and also knowing that you're in a situation which isn't right, and you actually need to get out of that situation. Wait, yeah. How long were you in the Land Rover for?
So it was from UK to Cape Town. The total was 6 months. We'd always planned it to be 6 months. So because we stayed for a month in Zambia, like on a farm, then it meant that we were really quick through the next bit. So it didn't go as we'd hoped it to go, but the 6 months was always kind of how we'd planned it to be. So yeah, 6 months. 6 months where
you learnt a lot. I mean, yeah. One of the other things you talked about was about this element of control, about what you can control and what you can't control. In 2009, you were diagnosed with a disease, which you've got no control over. Do you want to share more about that story?
Yeah, totally. So for those of you who don't know the story, I had a pituitary tumour, and it caused a disease called Cushing's. I ended up in intensive care. I always forget all the symptoms. I had diabetes, insomnia, memory loss, psychosis, osteoporosis, muscle wasting to the point that I could barely get up the stairs or out of a bath. Fat, I was podgy, bloated in the face, in the tummy. I had about three double chins. I've got quite a few anyway, but I had more. Big lump of fat on my back, skin thinning, hairy, spotty, and bruising. I think that's it. So it was quite a lot. My body wasn't in the best state, and I remember being in hospital and Mum kind of looking at me. Mum was sort of mortified by the whole situation, as you would as your daughter's like dying in front of you. I was just mortified that I was putting my mum through this and I couldn't do anything about it. And I'd say to her, I was like, Mum, you can't do anything about it. I can't do anything about it. I'm being I was as positive as I could be, which was pretty positive, but my brain wasn't exactly functioning fully, and I was so tired. But I was like, look, the doctors are going to do their thing, the tumour's going to do its thing, the surgery, they're going to be as good as they can be, and you've got no control out of the outcome. There's no point you worrying. And I mean, obviously at the time she didn't really, I think it's probably the last thing she wanted to hear was her daughter telling her not to worry. I'd be like, go and have a trip down the Thames or something. She was like, I do not want to go and have a trip down the Thames. But it is totally that. There's so, you're in that situation. There's nothing you can do about it. And what is the point about worrying about something that you can't control? It's such a waste of energy. And actually, I needed that energy to keep me alive almost to that point. But if you can take that and use the same principle in everyday life, it has exactly the same outcome. So there's so many things. And like when I was crossing the Atlantic, same things. You've got a massive wave coming at you, and it's like, I can't control the fact that this massive wave is here. There's no point worrying about it. And then you enjoy life more, and you enjoy the situation you're in. You kind of assess the risk, I suppose, of that particular situation, of the waves. I'm clipped in, and I've done everything I can to stay alive, and ultimately I have no control over the fact that there's a big wave going out my arse right at this particular moment. And it is like that with so much in life. Everything from getting an interview or not getting an interview, or getting a job or not getting a job, or someone liking you or someone not liking you. Like so much that we waste energy on trying to control a situation or worrying about it. And it's just like, you just got to relinquish it. You just let it go. And then everything becomes a lot more peaceful and calm, I suppose. And life becomes enjoyable. Anyway, so philosophical.
No, but I love it. And there's so much truth in it, because you just can't control the environment sometimes, and you can only control your feelings and your thoughts about it. So yeah. with your disease, like once you get the tumour removed, is it then a case of that the recovery can start happening?
Well, it's very interesting, because since being someone who's like on social media and in the news and stuff, I've had a lot of Cushing's patients come to me, and they're like, oh my God, you're so inspiring. Here I am lying in bed and da-da. So I have no idea about other people who have got this disease, but my attitude was, right, I literally thought they were going to take it out and I was going to be back to work the next day, more or less, because I thought if you remove the tumour, you remove the hormones, back to normal. But what I hadn't realised was that because the hormone levels, it was cortisol, so cortisol levels were so high that my whole body for years had been used to this really excessive level of cortisol. And so that's how it was used to functioning. So the minute you remove that, the pituitary stops working. For me, luckily it was temporary, but the pituitary, and every single cell in your body is going, oh my God, why have I only got like a third of what I'm used to? So your body kind of aches, and they've been up your nose and taken it out. So you've got a headache from that as well, but you've also got headaches from the lack of hormones. You've got lack of appetite, all these kinds of things. But yes, the diabetes goes, the insomnia goes, the memory loss goes, the weirdness. People are always like, I'm not quite sure that ever quite went, but yes, the psychosis goes, the bloating disappears. So physiologically, all those symptoms I had disappeared, which was amazing. But then you have the after effects of the pituitary gland not working. But positive attitude, I was like, not going to let it stop me. I was on personal trainer like a week later, and just up and about and doing stuff. And I think 18 months later, my pituitary gland was back on track, and I was normal functioning human being. But like I say, there are other people out there who talk about having really like hideous things. I don't know whether it's positive mental attitude or whether it's actual. So difficult to say.
Being that positive in that situation, especially, when you read off the list of things that you had sort of going on there's a lot of stuff happening, and being in hospital, having the surgery, getting into that recovery process. How did you maintain that positive attitude throughout the recovery? Because I'm sure there must have been ups and downs during that phase.
It's really bad to saying that you use someone else's worst position to make your position feel better, and I don't want it to sound like that. So if they ever do, but my mate who's in the wheelchair, I've got two friends who are both in wheelchairs for the same situation, and I'm so thankful that's not me, which I know is like a kind of, but I mean, they're great. They've inspired me. It's their kind of, the way they are in life is what inspires me to be positive about life and get on with it, because they're positive about life and their situation is so much worse than mine. They're my age, they're 36, 37, and they get on with life, and it's so not easy for them. And so for me, I'd always be thinking about those two, both during when I was ill and like during my recovery, just to think, and there's so many other people in the world who are worse off, and it's like you can't sit there and mope about yourself. Like, unless you want your life to be rubbish, then why would you sit around moping about it? It's kind of, you just got to, I don't know, I just like to want to enjoy life. So, but there was a period when I took myself off my medication, and that did make me a little bit like, I just can't be bothered to go out. I couldn't really, I just didn't have it was more because I didn't have the energy. Like, at the end of the day, and people are going, oh, do you want to come out? I'll be like, oh, I'm just quite tired, so I might just stay in. And the doctor said, like, why are you taking yourself off the medication? Go back on it. I went back on it, and literally the next day I was all good again. So that was just the hormone replacement stuff. So yeah, there was no, from what I can remember, there was no kind of deep dark moments when I was thinking like really bad thoughts. It's exciting. You're well again. Like, they've taken out the thing that was killing you, and now it's out. You should be happy.
Many times people in life are sometimes just going through the motions. They're on this treadmill. They've never really thought about what they wanted to do with their life. They just sort of follow along with the crowd. I know it's something that I've done, school, university, moved to London, get a graduate job, so on and so forth. When an experience like this happened to you, and a life-changing experience, you could have died dealing with this disease, having these sort of major surgeries and doing the recovery. Did that cause you to make any major decisions about your life and how you wanted to live it?
I mean, I've always been one. People have said you should do it like this. I'll probably much do it the way that I want to do it. I've always been that from quite a young age. Like, I want to do it this way, I'm going to do it this way. So in terms of sort of like my lifestyle, it's very difficult to know whether what I'm doing now would have been the same if I hadn't had it. But I have to say that I did definitely sort of wanted more of a focus on the charitable side in my life after that. I was so lucky that I was, still around, and I've got everything. I've got a great family. I've got friends. I've got a great life, people who care for me. And I realized that actually doing stuff for other people made me a lot happier than doing stuff for myself and trying to make money and all that sort of stuff. So I definitely thought, right, when I get out of hospital, this is a good and it took about 2 years, but after I'd gone back to teaching, so I was a science teacher, I thought, what am I doing here? Because I'm totally not enjoying this. I don't want to be here when I'm 70. So I need to get out now, and I want to go and do something. I don't know what it is, but I want to go out, and find something that I'm passionate about, because my ex had always been really upset that I was never passionate about climbing. And I was like, well, climbing's not my thing. And he had a passion. And I thought it was so cool to have a passion. I really wanted a passion, but I didn't have a passion. So I thought, after I was ill, I must give myself time and space to go and find something. I don't know what it is. And I did. I found stand-up paddleboarding, which is great. So yeah, it did. It just gave me a kick up the arse. And it's funny you say that, because I met someone the other day, and she said, she was quite outgoing, gregarious type of female, and she said, it's just amazing what you're doing. I'd love to do something like that. I was like, well, why aren't you? Like, she goes, you've had that experience where you've nearly died, and so it just gives you, and it's such a shame that you have to go through, that you have to go through something like that in order to give yourself that kick up the backside. Like, why can we not just go, right, if she can do it, and like, let's take away the illness, but she can do it and nothing's happened. I actually said to her, I can push you in front of the train if you want, just to give you that little kick.
So stand-up paddleboarding, that became your passion. How did that come about?
So I quite fancied the guy at the bar. I got chatting to him, and he said, oh yeah, I got some stand-up paddleboards. He's a South African guy. And I was like, oh great. I thought it looked like the most boring thing ever, because I'm a bit of I like flying down the slopes on my snowboard quickly, and getting on my bike and going fast. I'm not into like mindful, gentle stuff. So I thought it looked really boring, but I quite fancied him. So I said, can you give me a lesson? He was like, brilliant, yeah, $30, see you there tomorrow morning. And I get up, and me being me, rather than being all girly and going, oh, I can't do it in the morning, and I was like, check me out. So I tried like my best, and I'm quite sporty, so I'm coordinated. got on the board, wanted to impress him. I impressed him so much that he said I didn't need a lesson. So he stayed on the bank and I had to go off on the Nile on my own. I was like, that wasn't the plan. We were meant to be having a romantic paddle session together. And because I had gone out to impress him, yeah, don't impress the man too much on a first date. Not that he knew it was a date, but in my head it was a date.
Did it lead to a second date?
I don't know, that would be telling, wouldn't it? I'm sure over time there was a second date. So I learned to paddle on the Nile, which was just incredible in Uganda. And I would go off. I'd do like 6 miles. I go up the river and come back down again. Pretty nice, very good. Gives you a very good solid core. I then used to outplank him in the evening when I'd had too many beers. We used to do the plank, and I would plank men for my drinks. Anyway, so it was amazing. But my mind, I would try to plan. I was working at this school, and I'd try and plan the lessons of what I was going to do next day. And I'd come back and I'd be like, oh God, I haven't thought about anything. That's so annoying. And I'd realise that I'd be going off for like 2 hours. I'd be having this amazing body workout. I'd be looking around at the environment. I'd be having like otters and sea eagle, what are they called? Fish eagles. I see all the local communities washing all their clothes. So it was like this incredible, like beautiful experience. Plus, my brain was just switching off. My brain is quite hectic most of the time. So my brain was switching off. And I thought, this is so good. And it's so easy to do as well. Like I take people out and teach them. And basically it's one lesson and you're sorted. And that's when I decided that when I came back to the UK, I wanted to do something based around stand-up paddleboarding. It's accessible. It's great for the mind. It's great for the body. It's easy. You're out in the environment. It's good for communicating. You can just talk to people and chat away. And it's something I'd like to do for my future, is kind of paddleboard coaching, not as in learning how to paddleboard, but talking about life coaching, that kind of thing. Because I think communicating when you're not facing someone, like seat to seat, is so much easier. I think it just flows. I think,
especially
chat flows.
Even if you're, walking side by side with somebody, it's less intimidating when you're not having to look at somebody in the face. You can just sort of talk and share about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and when you've got something to do, like you're paddleboarding, there's an excuse to stop and focus on something. So if like conversation's getting a bit difficult, like a bit too much, there's always a sort of an excuse that you need to just focus on something else. And the minute you stop focusing on the conversation, it's like it just comes out. Like if you don't have time to think about it, it's like when you're on autopilot. So I've had it with clients before, and they're just kind of on autopilot, and it all just comes out, like stuff just flows out because they're actually focusing on something that they're doing, like their paddle stroke or something, but they're still chatting. So it's quite an interesting one. So yeah, but I love it. I love paddleboarding.
I mean, talking about difficult conversations, what was it like when you told your family and friends, do you know, I've had this great idea, I'm going to row solo across the Atlantic Ocean and go after the world record?
I think they were like, yeah, whatever, Kiko, we've heard all this sort of chat before. Mum said, I'm not going to tell my friends. And I said, well, it's going to be a bit difficult when I'm going to be all over the news. And she said, well, I think it's only a 50% chance you're going to do it. I had a massive argument. I was like, where on earth have you got that 50% from? You can't just make up like figures like that. And why do you think why is there only a 50% chance I'm going to make it? Like, is that what you think of me? I think that kind of spurred me on a bit. I love it when I love proving people wrong. So if they tell me I can't do something, it's like, amazing, thank you. And then if they think I can do it, then I'm like, oh great, I need to do it for them because that person is supporting me, so therefore I need to do it. So it's almost like a win-win situation. But yes, I think it's funny. My older brother, the week before I left, his company got in touch and said, oh, we'd love to be part of this. And I was like, why are you phoning me up a week before I leave? Because my brother had only told them like a week before I left. I was like, this is clearly no one in my family really thought I was going to do it.
Was that quite tough to handle, not having that sort of immediate support?
I have to think about it. I have to step away because there's 4 of us. They've got, the 2 older ones have got 4 kids. The younger one's just had his first kid. So I just have to like step away from the fact that it's not all about me. And I'm just like, they've got other stuff going on in their life. And I'd love them to be like 100%, because it's third child attention seeking syndrome that I totally admit to. It's unconscious, but you can look at my life and there's a lot of these sort of mega marks in my life, landmarks, or whatever you'd want to call them, that you can see. That's like third child go, hello, I'm here, look at me, like, you know, I'm not doing it like you, but I am still capable. The big psychology that you could probably look into there. So I'm used to it, I suppose. But there was definitely a time when I was kind of like, why is no one in my family like interested that I'm doing anything? But then you think, actually they've got loads of stuff going on in their life. Why do they have to spend, you know, not every time that I shout should they be running? But I think, now they're excited and proud. So that's good. That's nice.
How long was it from having the idea to actually, getting on the boat to row across the Atlantic? What was the time frame?
So September 16, I had the idea. End of September, I got in a rowing boat for the first time. So I'm not a rower. I just put that out to everyone out there. So I kind of had to. I mean, I know how to put an oar in the water because I've done it as a kid in a little wooden boat on holiday. But I had to the rowing machine. I had to have some lessons, and then end of January, so 1st of Feb 18, I left. So what's that? 16 months, is that? 17 months to actually leaving Gran Canaria. It was a hectic 17 months, but 17.
I was going to say, tell us about that time, because I mean, there's a couple of things I think, especially with ocean rowing. One, it's the cost of doing it. It's, hugely expensive.
Massive.
It's the fitness, it's the mental preparation. There's a lot going on in that time frame. Take us back to almost like where you started and how you started once you got that idea.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because I'm at that same process now, and it's a bit scary. It's always like writing the first page of your book is always, or like the beginning of the essay, or it's like, how do you start? And as far as I can remember, I think I probably had a meeting with the boys and I wrote some absolute rubbish PowerPoint presentation that was like my sponsorship deck. And I mean, I don't even know how you know who to send these things to. I still don't know how you know who to send these things. It's all about who you know. And I wanted it to be going now. And it's like, do you start with a PR? Do you start with no one wants to know about something that you're going to be doing in a year's time, especially when you've never rowed before and you're going for the most ridiculous, like, solo rowing the Atlantic, and you're going for a world record. You've never done it before. Well, yeah, right. We'll follow that story when you get back. So they couldn't get the PR, didn't know who to send it to. So it was a real like scrappy beginning. But I feel that for every kind of 10 phone calls you make or something, someone will put you in touch with someone, or you'll meet someone else who you get a proper introduction to. So it was literally like just going on and on and on, and being rejected and being rejected and being moved here and being moved there. And it's like, I'm very lucky. I live in this little cabin at the bottom of my mate's garden, and I do babysitting and nannying and exchange. So I didn't have any rent to pay. So it was very cheap, 17 months. And I lived like cheaply, didn't go shopping, barely went out that much. And then I met someone who was just like instrumental, and probably more instrumental in the confidence building rather than they were meant to be getting me loads of money. But as it turned out, I think I got some introductions, which was great. I did get some money from her and her friends and her connections. Figuring out why I was doing it, what I was doing. So that was all. So basically up until April, so from September to April, it was really foundation building. Nothing happened. The amount of sponsorship decks I wrote and changed and altered, and the amount of PDFs for this and PDFs for that, and the amount of people I contacted and got rejected. It was like relentless. But I really I was so passionate I was going to do this because I wanted to. It was actually because I wanted to raise money for King's College Hospital. When I decided that's who I wanted to do it for, that made me go, yep, I'm going to do this. I really want to prove to people that you can do anything. You don't have to be anyone special, because I'm certainly not anyone special. If you want it enough and you get enough support from people, then it is doable. And once I'd kind of got that idea in my head, whatever hit me along the way on a day-to-day basis or an hourly basis or whatever, then I wasn't going to let it stop me. So that kind of worked. And then I decided to do women only funding. So I thought, rather than going corporate, because this is painfully painful, no one kind of wants in, and I don't have a job in the corporate world, which I think always helps when you can go, hey, like CEO at Accenture, I'm going to go and do this. And they're like, oh, brilliant. Yeah, we'll give you 20 grand because we know who you are. But I don't have that. women only funding, set up something called 100 Together. And obviously you have the first few, your mum comes in and she wants to be part of it. And then a mate wants to be part of it. And then a few other mates. And before you know it, I had sort of like 5 or 6 people, or 5 or 6 grand in the bank. And it got going. And it was always really slow. I never had a sort of massive pickup. And it is just, I mean, it's a full-time job, especially as a solo. I think that's partly why not many people do solo, is that I think I raised 70 grand for that. And then I'm now on just coming up to 80. I think I've just got 87,000 in the bank for the charity. Plus I'm owed some, so 100 grand for charity, 70 grand for my project, which I'm pretty proud of. It's actually harder. The preparations. Everyone always asks about the rowing, and it's actually the bits before that was what I'm more proud of. Getting my boat in the water, I think I'm more proud of than actually getting across the Atlantic. But no one ever asks you about that.
What was the biggest challenge in the preparation? I mean, what was the biggest hurdle that you had to overcome?
My tumour coming back. So in July, it became apparent that things weren't quite right, and went back to the doctors. I was pulling some ridiculous times on the rowing machine. I was overtaking guys on my bike. I was really strong. I was getting up really early in the morning. The world was great. I was really more chatty than I am now, hyperactive. Went to the doctors, and my tumour had come back exactly the same place. So it was essentially probably the same one. I mean, you only need to leave one cell, and it's going to grow back. So that was the biggest hurdle, because it put my health, my training and stuff at a stop, and then I then decreased. So again, I had the whole hormone issue. So my cortisol levels dropped, my growth hormone was deficient. So that's all. Both of those things are instrumental in training, in muscle growth, in energy. So that was kind of a bit of just had to sit back and wait. And again, can't do much about it. And if it meant that my trip was delayed, then my trip was delayed. Luckily, I convinced myself that it was all good. And it was, I mean, I'm still deficient in those things. I actually thought I'd cured myself. Cured, not killed. Cured myself. So I had to manage that actually when I was across the Atlantic. But that was one of the hardest things. And just managing everything. I mean, my diary was just ridiculous. I actually got a personal assistant, which I quite enjoyed. There's just so much going on, because you have to stay alive and you have to try and raise this huge amount of money. You had to be okay with rejection. So
did you ever start to doubt yourself? Did you ever start to think, not why is this happening to me, but why again? I'm so fit, I'm so healthy, I'm so strong. Yeah. Everything's starting to come together. I'm doing this big challenge, which is only a few sort of months away.
Yeah.
How did you? Yeah, I mean, there's positive mental attitude, and then there's also just like how.
It's just like, it's so Kiko. If that's going to happen to anyone, like, you couldn't even write that in a storybook. Girl decides to row the Atlantic, having never rowed before, to get a world record, to raise money for a hospital. Oh, and the tumour after 8 years just happens to come back. But it came back and it showed itself. I almost think it was such a positive in the whole thing, actually, when you look at it, because it was obviously making me a little bit loopy enough back in September to think that this was a great idea to raise money for Kings. So that was like positive, that, oh yes, let's row the Atlantic, raise money for Kings. Of course, that's what I should have done ages ago. But then it reared its ugly head enough to make me realize it was there just in time that it could be out and I could be recovered and still leave on the date that I want to leave, and then leave me with a pretty good story afterwards, like one that you can't write. So actually, I pretty quickly realized that this was a good thing. This was not a negative at all. It was purely, it was almost like it was designed to happen in a way. So yeah, and it's totally me. It's never going to be normal. I've never done anything, even if you can't control it. I've never done it normally.
So you've overcome a huge amount, the planning, your health, women only fundraising, you've raised the funds, you've got your boat, you're going to set off, you've had this crazy sort of planning, diary management, everything, trying to organize everything you need to do. And there must be so much stuff. Getting onto the boat, solo, rowing out of the harbour, what was that like?
Relief. I was like, oh, thank goodness I don't have to like answer an email for another however many days. I don't have to do my social media. I'm just gonna, this is what I've been planning. I mean, it's surreal. I'm like, I remember saying to myself, can't believe this is happening. I was like, you've been talking about it for 16 months and now you're leaving. You have no idea. I have no idea about what's about to happen. I've never been to sea in my life before. So apart from when I've like got on a ferry to Portsmouth, to France or whatever, I have no idea what I'm about to face, but I know I've got this little vessel. It's going to keep me safe. And then 3 nautical miles, 3 nautical miles off, I'm like, oh my God, I left my medication in the fridge. So I have to turn around and go back to collect my medication, which again was really lucky that the winds weren't so strong that I couldn't get back. Again, so typical.
Did you then have to start the clock again, or did you?
So I had to start the clock again. So I went back. I went to the pub. I had a drink and some fish and chips, and started off. And do you know what? It had been so manic. My kind of 2 weeks before I left, I'd had a fundraiser which I'd been, putting together. So that was manic. And then the last kind of getting everything all sorted. The last 2 weeks, saying goodbye to people, having farewell parties, and all this sort of stuff. I had norovirus literally the night and morning before I got on the plane to Gran Canaria. So I hadn't stopped puking up all night. Got on the plane to Gran Canaria. I had training. My mum and dad arrived. My sister arrived. The TV crew arrived. And then when I left, I was just like, and I had to come back. And when I left, all I wanted to do was to actually just leave on my own. So I kind of got the best of both worlds. I got the farewell departure with everyone, which is what it was meant to be, and saying goodbye to mum and dad. And then I had the second departure, which was like the chill. I just had time to just breathe for it was only 3 hours, but still it was a 3 hour kind of, and then I left, and it was sort of how I'd really wanted it. I just needed a bit of breathing space.
Yeah, what was it like being out on the Atlantic? Because a lot of space on the Atlantic, a lot of breathing space.
Yeah, there's a lot of carry on, sorry.
No, I was going to say, tell us more about it, being out on the ocean in your your little rowing boats.
So as you know, as I said, I love little spaces. So totally love not having very much stuff, very simple, basic life. I mean, I didn't take enough, if I did it again, it would be totally different. But I still enjoyed, I take different clothes and I take different food and everything. But I just love that. And I really enjoy, I'd stand up, I'd look around and I'd go, you can't see anything for miles. Apparently it's only 3 miles, the horizon. So I would think to myself, pi r squared, so that I was trying to work out what the area was, although I had no pi on my phone calculator to work it out. But I'd look around and I go, this is amazing. It's weird. It's like so crazy that I'm in this tiny little boat with no one else around me, with these waves, and like not a huge amount of nature, to be honest. Like occasionally I'd get some stuff, but we'll talk about that later, I'm sure. But there's no one there. And you look around, and then I had this thing like, how far away is this is a very interesting question. How far away is the nearest person? Phoned up my weatherman, Angus, and he's like, well, we were actually talking about this and figured out that there's someone closer to you in space than there is on Earth, which is weird. And then I was the whole kind of thought process was, in everyday life, you're never more than a few meters or from someone. And lots of people go, oh yeah, well, I went and did this. I went to Easter Island. I went to the Antarctic, and with a group of people. But I'm talking, no, on your own, how far have you ever been from another human? What is the distance? How alone have you been? Not like emotionally alone, obviously physically alone. And you ask people, and it's not a very big distance. And there was me, and there was I, like 260 kilometers next to someone, or it was even more than that. I think it was nautical miles, I can't remember, but that is the closest human being. And that was such an amazing thought. It's incredible to think that you've had that like opportunity. I know it's what some people think that's the worst thing ever, like oh my God. So I loved it. I mean, I never got lonely. I never felt alone. I just felt a bit relentless. It's just like, oh, do I have to get up and do it again? And I felt exhausted, but I never felt alone or lonely.
Tell us about a typical day. What was it like?
There's no typical days in Kiko's life. There's meant to be a routine, but my health sort of, I didn't like rowing at night when the waves are big. Obviously, it's not the nicest, and there was no moon. So I would tend to sort of, it varied throughout the trip depending on how I was feeling and what the weather was doing and etc. But I always tried my shifts. I always tried to make them 2 hours. There was a period of time when I couldn't make it through 2 hours, so I would do 1 hour on, 20 minutes off. And when I was doing the 2 hours on, it kind of towards the end, I was doing 2 hours on, 15 minutes off, 2 hours on, 15 minutes off, and then I'd have a longer sleep at night time. In those off periods, at the beginning I would literally just crash and sleep, and then as I got more and more used to it, as my body started adapting, the fact that I was low in cortisol didn't help situations at all. I was taking 3 times, if not more, medication, and I literally would wake up some mornings and I couldn't even move to get my medication. It was that I was that exhausted. But anyway, kind of moved that. My body adapted eventually. So I do my blogging. I would clean the boat. Some days I had to get off the boat into the water and scrape the bottom of the boat I used to use my Boots Advantage card, scrape the cretins off the bottom of the boat. Occasionally, I think 3 times I washed my hair. I had to make water, so I had a water maker, make some of my food, potter. I used to, I had a really bad, like the bottom gets really sore because you're sitting on it and it's sweaty and it gets dirty and salty and horrible. So I used to stand on my boat and point it towards the sun to dry it out. No one's watching, so it's fine. So yeah, there's just various sort of housekeeping bits and pieces and sleeping. Yeah, sometimes I'd phone, quite a lot of phoning and waiting for emails to come in.
What was it like sort of mentally? I mean, are you entertaining yourself while you're out there in terms of, were you listening to music, to podcasts? Did you have, little TV screens set up so you could watch movies or Netflix? I mean, was that possible?
Yeah, so to begin with, I didn't have any, to begin with, I was so excited about everything that I was just and exhausted that I would sleep or row, and the weather was great, so it was fast and it was exciting, and I didn't really want to have anything on deck, so because it was quite wet, so I didn't have anything. And then after about a week and a half, 2 weeks, I think, out came the iPhone and the music, and my dad wrote a porno, which is a very fun. I don't know if you've listened to it.
I've listened to it.
Entertained me endlessly. But then I had to be careful not to, and Desert Island Discs. I had at night time, I had some series that I would watch just to get me through. But then it was weirdly, after sort of 4.5 weeks, I just noticed I struggle with the weeks. Maybe it was 5.5 weeks. The last sort of 10 days, I think it was 5.5 weeks. The last 10 days, I suddenly noticed I wasn't taking my phone out, and I wasn't needing, my music selection was so rubbish. I hated it. I just literally last minute downloaded some stuff and took some stuff off. I hadn't really kind of thought it through. But I wasn't taking it out onto the deck, and I wasn't listening to it, and I was actually just totally enjoying my shifts, and they would go by, and I'd think about this and I'd look at that, and I'd think about this again and I'd look at that again, and then I would be like, oh, the time's up. And then I got obsessed with like the data, so I'd be like, oh my god, I need to keep going, I need to get, how much further can I get this far in the next 10 minutes? And so rather than the 10 minutes dragging, suddenly the 10 minutes would go way too quickly because I was so desperate to get to that like distance in the 10 minutes that I'd be like, oh no, I need another minute to get to that distance. So actually I sort of figured a way of mentally getting through that.
With the data, obviously seeing the data coming in, being able to judge how many miles that you'd done, how many miles you still had to go, there was a pressure on you to get this world record that you were going after, which I believe was 56 days. I mean, did you feel that pressure while you were out there? Did you ever feel as though you were behind, constantly chasing, or did you get ahead and were like, right, I'm on target, I'm ahead of the world record now, I've got to, or how was that for you?
So I've basically got the best boat in the world. So I was very lucky that unless something really went wrong, I was pretty sure I was going to get it. And so in my head, I was actually going for 45 days. So that's what I was aiming for all the time, not 56. I was nowhere near 56 in my head. So actually, I've actually not succeeded in getting as what I wanted to get. But the weather was so bad for what I was doing that I was actually not too. 49 days was actually pretty good considering. There was a moment when those sort of like low moments when I couldn't move and I was so exhausted and I was feeling guilty that I wasn't rowing and all of this sort of stuff. And I was like, oh, you don't have to get the world record. It really doesn't matter. Like, you've told everyone you're getting the world record, but even getting in a boat and getting across the Atlantic as the 6th woman to do it on your own is still pretty good. But I knew that if I got the world record, it would be life changing. As in, I knew that the media would be more interested. I knew that the talks, it's a better story. So my future really kind of hinged, whatever that word is, on it, hinged on that. So I was never really that worried about it, but I had in my head, I was going so fast at the beginning that I, in my head, had thought I was actually going to do under 40. So I'd kind of got myself into this sort of mentality that this was what was going to happen. And I was like, oh my God, only like 5 days away from the halfway point. This is amazing. And I'd figured it out, and I was going to be like 39 days, and suddenly the wind changed. And that halfway point, which was 5 days away, took something like 2 weeks and 3 days or something. So like that mental switch from this is going amazing, you're going to smash it, to okay, Kiko, this is not gonna, that you've got to change your mentality because that's not happening. So I started getting a bit tetchy about the fact that I wasn't going to get what I had wanted to get. Had to have a few words with myself. Can't control it. The wind is going to do what it's going to do. I knew that at that point that I was going to get the record. But yeah, I did have that conversation. I did say to myself, it doesn't matter if you don't get it. You're doing great anyway. But then I also had to have words with myself when I was getting not upset, but agitated by the speed that I was going because of the wind, and I wasn't going to get the 39 days that I decided I was going to get. But yeah,
I mean, I'm sure the days must have all started to merge together after a while, but was there a moment while you were out on the Atlantic which just really stands out in your memory?
What is good or bad, or just any
memory? Yeah, good or bad, just something that will sort of stay with you forever.
I think the standing on the boat and just looking around, I mean, it happened lots of times, but just that whole kind of concept of looking around and going, this is insane, this is amazing. I mean, this tiny little boat all on my own, and there's that was just such a great, I loved that feeling. So that was, but there wasn't one particular one when I remember. The one time, it was great seeing the whales, but the one time it was early morning, so it was probably about 5 or 6, still dark. I got a slight glow of the sunshine, of the sunrise on one side of me, on the east obviously, and on the west I got a full moon setting, so it was probably, I was going to say a couple of meters above the horizon. No, it did not a couple of meters, but it looked like the distance I was away, it looked like a sort of a meter away, like almost dropping below the horizon, and it's like shimmering on the flat calm sea, and I'm just there rowing. It's quite a nice easy row because I've got a little bit of wind behind me, but only a tiny bit, enough that it's still calm outside. And I suddenly hear this like puffing noise and this splash, and I've got this pod of dolphins either side of me, kind of on their way wherever they're going. They were not interested in me, but they were all jumping, and which was probably a display. I don't know if dolphins, yeah, they do just jump. It wasn't just for me. And they're jumping next to me, and it's just like this amazing. I was thinking, oh God, that's like picture perfect, totally like as though you're in a film. And I'm the only one who's experiencing this. I'd love everyone else to experience it, but they can't. So that was a pretty beautiful sort of mindful.
Tell us about the finish.
So the last day, it was a bit stressful. When you're talking finish, so the last day, I had a really good night. I had done some rowing, and I was like, nothing else can go wrong, surely, because things had been going wrong, and I just thought someone was trying to not get me to the end. It was actually just all in my mind, but it didn't help that my parents were waiting for me, and they spent quite a lot of money waiting for me, and they were only going to be there for a few days. That kind of gave me a bit of a stress. But the last day, woke up, did some good rowing in the dark. Then I had a little snooze, and I woke up to this weird noise. And I looked outside. I was stuck in a seaweed bed, a bed of seaweed, like a field of the stuff, like the size of 3 rugby pitches. I was probably about 50 centimeters thick. I was like, oh God, I couldn't see which way was out. So that was my first, oh my God, how long am I going to be stuck in this? Because seaweed had been the bane of my life. It like gets stuck on the rudder. Well, in this particular situation, you don't go anywhere. And then eventually the sun came up and I managed to get out, and then cruising along, it was all going fine. Suddenly my GPS dies, and I'm like, what? How come? What's going on? So I phone up, my GPS has just died, and then the monitors die. I'm like, I know what's happening. I had a wave come into my cabin 2 nights before. It went straight onto my electrical system, and obviously this was the result of that. It was now kind of probably killing everything in my that was electrical. So I'm there stressing that my autopilot, which is sending me in the right direction, is going to die. I can't see where I'm going. Well, I can see where I'm going, but I don't know, like, electrically where I'm going from my screen. So I'm phoning Angus, my man, and saying, like, where do I go, what do I do? So eventually I'm having a 15-minute text message from him saying, go up a bit, go down a bit, go up a bit, and riding me into Barbados. I can then see Barbados, so that's like, at least if like my autopilot goes down, at least I can see Barbados, and at least I can know where I'm going. And then I see mum and dad flashing like mirrors at me. So they're standing on the point, kind of flashing at me. I'm standing up. And I think mum said, I didn't understand the enormity of what you were doing until I saw you surfing those, coming in on those big waves. I was like, mum, you didn't see the big waves. Like they were those waves, those ones. Thank God you didn't see the 80-footers. And then I get to the point. So I'm pretty pleased when I've got to the point where I'm supposed to be meeting the pilot boat, because the autopilot is still working somehow. Goodness knows how it's managed to stay alive. I'm very excited about that. Angus has disappeared. My sat phone, it says you have no credit left. So I send one text message to Angus saying, right, I'm here. I've got no credit left on my sat phone, which was incredible. The pilot boat with the film crew and stuff arrive, and I'm like, oh God, anything can break now. It's fine. And I just start talking and talking and talking. I've got so many stories to tell them. Don't stop. So in my head, everyone always says, oh, when you stepped on land, was it amazing? I'm like, yeah, it was. It's pretty cool. And I remember saying to myself, Kiko, your life is about to change. You've got the world record. This is it. And so in my head, the last day I've already kind of finished. Then I get to the waypoint where I'm supposed to be to meet the pilot boat. And I've kind of finished. I've seen humans now. And then I get to the jetty. I had to row around the island, which was a nightmare. But the sun was setting. It was amazing. It was lovely. It was just hard work. Got to the jetty. I was like, right, I've got the world record now. So I kind of finished. And then I come round into the harbour and everyone's clapping me. And it's pitch black at this point. So I can't really see a huge amount. And then I step off the boat and I'm all wobbly and mum's there. So I kind of finished in my head, I'd finished, I'd got the world record and I'd finished about 5 times in that day already, with a little bit of a kind of excitement in the middle that didn't really need to be there. But and then I had my mojito. Oh my God, I've been dreaming of the mojito. So and still now when I think about it, I'm like, oh my God, it was so nice. Sugar, cold, refreshing, all the things that I hadn't had for 50 days, plus obviously my mum and my dad and my brother and my nephew. And there was a big bright light because of the TV people. So I was kind of got off the boat with this huge light beaming in my eyes, poor like a rabbit in the headlights. All these people I'd never met before, like staring at me, and I'm like, hiya. Yeah, I don't want all of this glory, but thanks. And mojito in hand, which if you have a look at the pictures of my arrival, I think I've got clasped tightly, and it was a bit wobbly. But yeah, it was nice. It was good. That was it. That was the end. Finished.
I mean, looking back now you've had, a couple of months to reflect back on it. What do you think you've learned about that whole experience?
Do you know what? It's like all I've done is reinforced what I've been trying to show people and prove to people that what I really wanted to, and what I want to continue doing my talks and stuff, is to show people that actually if you take all the experiences you have in your life, you can become really strong. You don't need to do something mega like row the Atlantic, or you don't need to have this, like, you don't need to go and find yourself in order to be strong and to be resilient. I've actually created my resilience from all the experiences I've had, the small ones, the big ones, the good ones, the bad ones, whatever. And that has made me strong enough and confident enough to think that I can actually pull something like that off. And we'll go back to what I said earlier, is that in 2014, when I met the guys, I was like, no way am I getting in a solo rowboat. I've never been to sea and I can't spend time on my own. To September 2016, where I'm like, I know what, I'll solo row the Atlantic and I'll go and get a row. Something happened in those 2 years unconsciously. Like, it wasn't like I'd planned. I hadn't trained in those 2 years to make me change my mind. And in that, I'd set up a charity and I set up my business. I'd done it on my own, sort of on my own. Like, I didn't have a business partner, so to speak. I'd got teams together. I'd worked with people. I'd realized that community was really important. And my confidence in myself had grown. I hadn't been on any courses. I hadn't been reading any books. It was literally just my life and my experiences and me and my friends and my job and wherever I was living. And it was those things, plus all the other things that happened in my life that got me to that point in the first place, that obviously made me confident enough and resilient enough and stupid enough to think that I could do it. And, you know, I did pull it off. And there were, you know, loads of things that were against you. And life does that. Life sends things at you to challenge you. And all they're only there to make you stronger. It's funny. So Ganesh is the Hindu god. The elephant. He looks like an elephant. The Hindu god. And I was paddleboarding in Richmond, and I saw this thing in the bottom of the water. This was just after my operation. I saw this thing in the bottom of the water, and I was like, "What is that?" And I pulled out this 1.5 foot sized clay Hindu god of Ganesh, and I had no idea who or what he was. And there just happened to be 2 Hindu people on the beach at 7:30 in the morning, which is very random. And they came up to me and they were like, "Oh, it's amazing you found that. Yeah, it's really good luck. Keep it." So I kept it, and I looked up what Ganesh is. Ganesh is like good fortune and new beginnings, but Ganesh also puts things in your pathway that challenge you and help you overcome them, but that helps you grow. So he's actually like the god of growth, but he doesn't do it so easy. He apparently, you know, in the Hindu world, he makes you overcome stuff. So then I was kind of like, oh, interesting. And actually all those things that get chucked at us all got chucked at me. And over that period of 18 months of planning was actually only, when I'm at sea, is only there to make me become stronger. So then when you see it like that, you start to enjoy things that you would otherwise normally go, I hate that. I hate that experience. I hate that experience because it was bad. It was horrible. It made me feel like that. If you see it as just a stepping stone to becoming stronger, all your experiences actually become positive. Even though they might be a bit painful at the time, you know that they're going to be there to make you a bigger and better and greater and stronger human being. So yeah, I kind of like Ganesh. I threw Ganesh in the water as I left. The day I left in the Gran Canaria, I threw him into the water so that he would give me good fortune and put challenges along in my way as I went. Thanks, Ganesh. So I think that's quite a nice it's a nice thought. But yeah, never think of I never now think of a bad experience as a bad experience. It's all a learning, development, building sort of experience, really.
And what's going to be next? Do you have your next challenge planned out, or the idea?
It involves a bike. I'm waiting to release exactly what it is because I need to be a little bit sure that not sure, but I need to be confident that I can do it. And there's also 3 girls doing the same thing this year. And until they've completed it, I don't want to I need to have a benchmark. So they will be my benchmark. So yeah, 2 wheels. So biking, it's going to be bigger. That's not bigger than crossing the Atlantic, is it?
The world.
The jog will be a warm up, as might Britain, as might other things. But yeah, I mean, you know, if we go bigger than Le Jog and bigger than crossing the Atlantic solo, it gives people an idea. But I don't officially want to release. But yeah, you can have thoughts.
I was just going through my head thinking about all the women I know and what future challenges that they're doing. It's like, which 3 women do I know who are doing something?
Yeah, I don't know if you would. Yeah, you might do. They're all from England. They're not all British, but they're all from Great Britain.
Oh, this is interesting. So this is something to think about. So there's 3 women doing a challenge this year from the GB.
Yeah. Yeah.
What advice and tips would you have for other women out there who maybe don't want to row the Atlantic, but they want to either add more challenge and adventure to their life, or they just want to step outside their comfort zone? You know, what's your either your mantra or your philosophy, or what's your final words of wisdom?
I mean, it depends where you're coming from. I'd say if you have never done anything, you've got to start small and believe that nothing bad is going to happen. And if something bad does happen, it is only making you stronger for the next time. So grab life by the balls. Someone quoted me with the other day. What's the worst that can happen, really? And you know, just believe in yourself, because it is totally possible. Sure, I'm hoping what I've done proves that anything is possible. So just do it. Life is short. You've got to love life. Live life, love life.
Absolutely. And Kiko, where can people follow along with your journey and your next challenge?
So luckily with a name like Kiko Matthews, it's quite easy to find everything. So Instagram, Kiko Matthews, Twitter, Kiko Matthews, Facebook, Kiko Matthews, website, kikomatthews.co.uk. Is
your name actually Kiko, or is that short for like Catherine or something?
No, it's Sakiko. It's my real name. Kiko is the shortened version. And then I get nicknamed Kikos as well. So my mates call me Kikos, as even shortened. I was named after my dad's ex-girlfriend, which he claims now is not his ex-girlfriend. But for many years when I was younger, I was told it was his ex-girlfriend. It was a lady at university who he clearly fancied, who was the daughter of the Japanese politician, the Japanese prime minister.
And how do you say your name again?
Sakiko, Sakiko, Sakiko.
Sakiko and Kiko, thank you so much for coming on the Tough Girl podcast to share more of your story. It's been inspirational and eye-opening, and best of luck with your next challenge. I'm sure you'll go out there and absolutely smash it.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Lovely chatting.
Hey tribe, how you doing? I hope you enjoyed that episode with Kiko. What an absolute legend. Just got 2 quick things I wanted to share with you. Some really great news, to be honest, and I'm in a little bit of shock. So the Tough Girl podcast has been nominated for the Women's Sport Trust Be a Game Changer Award, which recognises those individuals and organisations doing the most to progress women's sports. This is huge. Honestly, I can't tell you how huge it is. I mean, the competition for Media Initiative of the Year is crazy. And the Media Initiative of the Year is something which raises the bar for the coverage of women's sports and help to prove its value as a media proposition. And the competition is Channel 4, Women's Euro 2017, Same City, Same Passion, Manchester City, and Sky Sports Cricket. Now, if you're UK based, you'll get it straight away. You'll be like, right, okay, big global organisations. If you're not from the UK, you're probably like, what is Channel 4? Just imagine the biggest broadcasting companies that you can, and then think of Tough Girl Podcast and think of me in my bedroom. So it's a huge honor to be nominated, but it now comes down to a public vote. So I'm going to need all of your support, all of your contacts, all of your social media leverage. It would mean the world to me if you could take the 30 seconds it takes to vote. If you go to womensportstrust.com/BAGC 2018 / you'll be able to vote there. Very, very quick and easy to do. Just have to go through and click on my name, the Tough Girl Podcast. Boom. All of the links will be across all of my social media for the next 2 weeks. The voting ends on the 13th of May. So if you can get to the link, vote, I'd appreciate it. If you can get your partner to vote, I'd appreciate it. If you get your children to vote, I'd appreciate it. Your friends, your family, your work colleagues. If you've got an email distribution list and you want to send an email out saying, please support the Tough Girl podcast and the incredible work that Sarah is doing, that would mean the world to me. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to work my hardest to promote it. I am going to tweet about it. I'm going to Facebook it. I'm going to Instagram it. I'm going to blog about it. I'm going to reach out to all my local newspapers. I'm going to do everything I possibly can and give it my best shot. But it's a huge honor to even be nominated and be recognized for it. And then what that means is that I will travel down to London on the 24th of May for the awards ceremony, which is going to be fantastic for a number of reasons. It's this brilliant opportunity to be able to network and connect with these incredible women who are out there, who are making this stand, who are putting their money where their mouth is, whether it's being a brand or a sponsor, whether it's, that in having an inspiring national initiative, whether it's being a sporting role model. It's all women who are wanting to make a difference in this field. And my passion is I want to increase the amount of female role models in the media. I want to share these incredible stories, these adventurers, these athletes, these ordinary women who are just smashing it on so many different levels. And on that note, I want to just make a special mention. One of the categories is for sporting role model, and it is a very, very tough category, but the name I want to bring to your attention is Stacey Copeland. If you haven't heard of Stacey, go back. She's been on the Tough Girl podcast back in, I believe it was like 2015. She is a phenomenal woman. I connected with Stacey after I did the podcast episode, and I remember after interviewing her just thinking, I'm just so on your level. I so get everything that you are trying to do. And so I've met Stacey quite a few times since then. She's been around to my house for lunch. She's been hugely supportive. She's been a patron of the Tough Girl podcast for the past couple of years now, I believe. She's recently in 2017 actually turned as a professional boxer. She's one of only 6 professional female boxers in the UK. She is just such a advocate for women and encouraging females to reach their full potential through sport. She's developed an amazing program called Pave the Way, which is a phenomenal project which I'm involved in. And I'd love for you to learn more about it as well by following Stacey. So you can check out Stacey on Twitter. She's at Scopeland Boxer, SCOPELANDBOXER. Go and follow Stacey. Vote for Stacey as well in the individual sporting role model category, because she really does deserve it. She's doing a phenomenal job. So that is your call to action from me today, is to go and visit Women's Sports Trust, vote on the Be a Game Changer Awards and make a difference. But even if it's just to go to the website and have a read through about the different initiatives, the individuals involved, the different companies involved, it makes for incredibly inspiring reading. So it's well worth checking out, because it just makes me so happy, because sometimes you can feel very alone and it's like, you're just fighting this fight. But actually, when you connect with other people, you realize there's so many women out there and men out there who are making such a difference in this world. And talking of people who are making a difference, I just want to say a massive thank you to this is unbelievable, 17 new patrons I have had in April. And you guys, honestly, it's just got really emotional recently, because I can just see that you really do appreciate my work. You want to help support me, and it's where your funds go is, the fact that I've been invited. So last year I also got invited to the Women's Sports Trust Awards down in London. I wasn't nominated or anything, but I was invited to it. But by the time you throw in, your travel down, your food, your accommodation, I'll stay with my sister, but, going out for a meal and stuff like that, it really adds up. And last year I couldn't afford to go, so I missed out on this incredible networking opportunity. But because of all these incredible patrons who are supporting me every single month, it means that I can say yes to the Be a Game Changer Awards. It means that I can get new leaflets printed out and new business cards. So when I go down there, I am going to network and everybody, by the time they leave that event, will have heard of the Tough Girl podcast. But the only reason I can do that is because I do have these patrons, 188 patrons supporting me. My goal for May is I want to hit 200 patrons. That is the plan. So if you haven't signed up, please go and sign up. I was quite shocked. I was telling my dad, quite a few individuals have signed up at $10. Kate Jiggins, Rosie Campbell, Sally Gilson. And I was talking to Dad saying, oh my God, this is just so generous. But he was like, but that's like £6 or £7 a month. But I mean, if you think, for the 4 or 5 podcast episodes you're getting, that's really, really good value. Sometimes I think you need other people to sort of tell you that, but because I'm trying not to expect anything. If you appreciate my work, that's phenomenal. But actually, if you can only afford $2 a month, it makes such a big difference, because it really, really does add up. When you've got 17 people signing up at $2 and $5, it just adds up and it makes such a huge difference. So Claire Jones, thank you so much. Ramble Her, Mandy Dixie, Shannon O'Leary, Claire Jones, Stephanie, thank you for increasing your pledge. I really do appreciate that. Super kind of you. Morgan, Bickback Davies, The Barefoot Hiker. You guys are just incredibly awesome. Ivan Maxova, Sarah Swan. This month has been hugely inspiring for me. It's been quite tough. I actually shared quite a sort of, not an emotional blog post, but quite a realistic blog post of, what's been happening. If you want to read that out, the title is, If It Was Easy, Everybody Would Be Doing It. So I think that must have touched a few people reading it. So thank you very much for your support. I know I've been talking for a long time, so thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing to the Tough Girl podcast. Thank you in advance for voting. Thank you for becoming a patron. Thank you for supporting me. I just want to say, get out there, have an awesome day. Wherever you are, whatever you are doing, just go out and have some fun. You guys are absolutely smashing it. And I have to say, Tribe, the Sunday post that I was reading on Sunday last week was just absolutely incredible. What you are all doing the actions that you're taking, the steps that you're taking towards your goals is absolutely spot on. And to be honest, I feel as though I need a separate podcast episode just to go through and share what the members of the Tough Girl Tribe are achieving. It is just inspiring. It's become my favourite time of the week, this post on Sunday, which goes up around 5 or 6 o'clock. And I just can't wait to hear the success stories and the learnings and what the plans are for next week. So enough from me. Thank you again. I will be back with you next Tuesday for another phenomenal episode of the Tough Girl Podcast. All right, take care, lots of love, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.